A West Virginia legend, Little Jimmy Dickens. Little Jimmy was born and raised in Raleigh County. Today, at 87, he's the oldest living member of the Grand Ole Opry. In November, Dickens was in Charleston to be inducted into the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame. He called it his greatest honor. Dickens is known for his rhinestone suits, 10-gallon hats, and novelty songs with names like Take an Old Cold Tater and Wait, and May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose. But there's a serious side to Dickens, as Suzanne Higgins found out in this interview.
I'm a plain old country boy, a cornbread-loving country boy. I raise cane on Saturday, but I go to church on Sunday. I'm a plain old country boy, a tater-eating country boy. I'll be looking over that old gray mule when the sun comes up on Monday.
You were a Depression baby.
Yes, I was.
Describe your home life. You came from a very big family.
Well, I did come from a big family, but my grandmother raised me and my grandpa, and my folks are all coal miners. They worked for Raleigh, Wyoming Mining Company, and nothing easy about coal mining for a living. But we all got by, and there was more love in our family than the money. But we all got by, and there was always plenty to eat and clothing, and so I had a nice childhood.
You were one of 13 children?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct?
I'm the oldest in the family, and I'll be 87 in December.
December 19th.
Yes, ma'am.
Are your brothers and sisters still around? Were you able to remain close to them?
I have two sisters that live down at Fairdale, which is just a short way from Beckley, and an aunt that lives at Bolt, and I go visit them every spring and every fall.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you remember about your grandparents? You remember your grandfather going to work on horseback.
Well, I remember that he was a tough old gentleman, and he rode through snowbanks and all, rode horseback over the mountain from Bolt to down the other side into Glen Rogers, was where they worked. He did that for 17 years and never missed a day's work.
And your grandmother, again, these were hard times. And your grandmother was very gracious to those that would come by and needed some help.
Absolutely. She always had something, food for people that were traveling through, and families, like there'd be a man and his wife and maybe 3 or 4 children, and they'd stay around with us for 2 or 3 days and then go on into Glen Rogers where they were headed for. And we gave them a warm place to sleep and food and helped them out. She did, my grandmother.
Were times tough for your family during that time?
Well, by my grandfather working every day, we got along very well. And it was tough on a lot of families there in West Virginia and where we lived. And my grandmother would always raise the big garden, and she'd help everybody out with that, with what she raised in the garden, and canned everything that she could can.
So there were obviously some lessons that you learned from your grandparents about work and family.
I think they taught me honesty more than anything else. And I'm proud that they did, because I've always been honest with my fans and with the people that support me. And they come first with me.
Did anyone in your family play or sing?
I can't remember a time when there wasn't a guitar or an old banjo or something around our house. And my mother played guitar and sang a few old folk songs, and my uncle played the old banjo, and he'd just plunk on it and sing the old folk songs like the Jesse James story and Barbara Allen and all those things. And so I was raised up with music in my family. None of them played professionally, but just for their own amusement.
And so they taught you to sing and to play?
Well, while they were working, I was trying to learn what I saw them do the night before.
That's neat. And there was no electricity in your home, correct? Until you had grown up and moved off.
I studied through high school by a coal oil line, and that had to be blown out at 8 o'clock.
Because you needed some for tomorrow night.
Yes, ma'am.
It must just seem surreal at times for you to be where you are today and to think back.
Determination. I had a little old $12 guitar, and I carried it in a pillowcase. And I'd hitchhike from Bolts to Beckley to WJLS. And I'd go over there and get with some groups that were playing there and worm my way in, and they'd let me sing one song maybe a week on the radio. And they'd take me out to the little theaters and the schools that they played. And the Bales brothers were there with Molly O'Day and Mel Steele and his group. And they'd all let me go out with them on their personal appearances. And I had a little postcard picture that I sold for $0.10, and sometimes I'd make $1.50 or $2, a night, and that was good for me.
And how old were you at that time?
Oh, I don't know. I was still in high school.
Was it because of the love of music and you felt you wanted to do this, or was this a business decision even in high school? I
had my eyes set for some day that I'd go to the Grand Ole Opry. And I had 10 years of experience in radio, but Mr. Acuff was the reason I went to the Opry. Mr. Acuff came to Music Hall in Cincinnati when I was at WLW. And I went and got acquainted with these boys in these band as they were unloading, and they took me in and introduced me to Mr. Acuff, and he asked me what I did, and I told him that I did early morning programs on WLW, and he said, "Would you like to sing a song on the show today?" And I said, "Well, I'd be thrilled to death to do that." So he liked what I did, and we corresponded for about 2 or 3 years, and I got a call to come to the Grand Ole Opry and do a guest appearance on Red Foley's NBC program. And I went down there and did that, and it worked for me. People liked what we did.
Yeah, I guess it kind of worked for you.
It did. It did work for me. And then the second time that I was invited as a guest, he told me to bring my belongings because he thought that he had arranged for me to stay with them. And I've been there since 1948.
Which makes you the longest tenured performer of the Grand Ole Opry in the longest running live radio show. Quite an achievement.